Shifting content delivery based on consumption history and content scoring. So this is what I was alluding to earlier, where rather than just having a contact score and just having a company score, if you're HubSpot and you're marketing to me and I am getting into a whole bunch of marketing and ABM content, don't keep sending me Sales Hub and Service Hub stuff, right? I'm clearly interested in a very clear path, and you should be giving me content for that path so I can dig deeper and deeper so that I'm ready to buy, okay? So we want to have our overall score and our individual content scores, right? Like we can score someone on the overall score when they engage in that marketing content, and we can score their marketing score. So we have a quick question here from Shadab. What is best practice when it comes to scoring? Is it to categorize via multiple scoring properties? So yep, I think I might have just answered that. And I have Pasha's question as well. So yes, I do recommend having contact and company scoring, but make a plan for what you're going to do with each. Give it a purpose. So how are you going to set up a workflow so that if an individual starts to show a lot of intent and engagement and ready to buy behaviors, how do we make sure we're paying attention to the individual, but also keeping the account clear, right? Because then if I'm a sales rep and let's say I get, let's say the sales rep gets me coming through and it's like, okay, well, Mandy's score is 100. She is really engaged. Digital Reach's score is only about 25. Now, I, as a sales rep, can make a decision. That whole account is not engaged yet. Mandy's engaged. I don't have anyone else on that account with a score. So how am I going to approach my conversation with this prospect based on that information, right? So it can help sales make decisions, and it can also drive automation. And then to answer Shadab's question, the reason I think it's important to have scoring for these different buckets is to really, again, understand our buyer at a more nuanced level and to leverage more automation. If we know what they like, we can shift the email content with smart content. We can take them to a different landing page. We can show a different ad creative, take them to a different article that's going to create value based on their interest. And so whenever I do this, though, I make sure that the workflows account for, okay, well, if she has 100 on marketing, but she has an 80 score on sales, I'm probably not going to change the content that I'm serving because it's all getting engaged with. And this prospect is interested in marketing and sales. But if it's all going to one, let's not waste this person's time. Let's give them what's going to bring them value. Okay, great questions. Thank you for popping those in there. So when we're going to shift content delivery based on consumption history or content scoring, here are the steps that are required. Number one, we want to define what content consumption buckets or segments you would like. So figure out what's meaningful. And my recommendation here, look at your products. Look at the problems you solve and the pain points and what problems your products solve. This is going to help you to create content clusters that will align with these content scores. And then define how you will add and subtract from these scores. So what are the scoring criteria for that particular bucket? And then we need to create those lists again so that we can get that smart content served. So when people have scores of a certain level, then we're going to get them onto that list and we're going to change their marketing mix, give them smart content, all of that fun stuff. And then we also need to make sure we remove people if the score's level. Let's say at first I was only looking at marketing content, looking at HubSpot, but then I found an article that talked about sales and marketing alignment. So now all of a sudden my sales score is just as high. So that would trigger, if I were on the HubSpot side of things, to start serving content that talked about ABM, sales and marketing alignment, revenue operations, and both marketing and sales hub. So we can use those indicators to make sure our campaigns stay relevant. Then we create workflows to deliver these different nurtures and campaigns based on content interest. So the features we're going to use are smart content, lists, workflows, and scoring properties. So let's go ahead and go live. We're going to set up our scoring based on content consumption. Then we're going to add someone to a list, and we're going to also talk about removing people. And then we're going to use those, we're going to use that smart content, and we're going to change those nurtures, okay? So let's go ahead and set up that lead scoring. That's going to be our first step. So we're assuming here we've already categorized our buckets. We're assuming here we've already lined out our criteria. So now what we did is we created a score for HubSpot content score. So for digital reach, we use this to say, hey, is someone on our website consuming content that's about HubSpot as a product and our services related to that? Or Are they looking at marketing content that would relate to our marketing services that we provide? So what I would do here is if somebody has been, viewed a page with CRM in it at least 3 times and a page with HubSpot in it at least 5 times, we're going to give them 20 points. Now, is this what I would actually do? No, this is not our actual scoring. This is just set up as a demo. So you'd want to be way more in depth than that. But then I also said if they have interacted with an ad that the ad set contains the name HubSpot, that we're also going to add to their score. Okay, so this is just a very simple example of that content scoring. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add someone to a list based on that score. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say that when the HubSpot content score is greater than 50 and the marketing content score is less than 30. So this was a contact enrollment, a contact-based workflow, and these are our contact properties. You could also do this at a company level, although I recommend doing the content consumption buckets at an individual level. You could roll it up to a company level, though, to help sales better understand the problems that they need to solve for your customer. So, okay. So now we have our triggers set up. So now what we want to do is we're going to add someone to a list based on that score being what it is, right? And so then what we could do just the same is actually set up another workflow. I'm going to go ahead and go to this workflow and, actually, I don't have this one. One second. So then what we would do is just the same. If we wanted to remove someone from the list, we would go here and say if their score is greater than or equal to 30, then what we're going to do is actually we're going to remove them from that same list, right? So if their score changes so that marketing score goes above 30, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this action. We're going to delete this one and we're going to remove them from that list, right? So we're going to have the action be to remove from, and we'll just say that exact same list that they were on before. So we want to make sure to set up those 2 workflows, one to add them to the list. And then if the score changes, we want to remove them from that list. So we're no longer, if it's for us, only serving them HubSpot content, we would also be serving them marketing content. Okay. So now what we want to do is use smart content for different lists. So just like I showed you earlier, we're going to go in here, we're going to click on this text box and we're going to go in and we're going to manage these. And so again, we have that high intent contact. So let's say this was our demo list where we're showing people HubSpot content. Then again, we could change this to say HubSpot saves time instead of digital reach saves you time or whatever it is that we're doing. So we can customize that content and make it aligned. So then the very last thing we're going to do in this step is change the nurture, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say that if the list membership is any of whatever list you moved people onto in the previous step, so anybody who is on that list is going to receive the nurture that we have set up, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to send them an email. There we go. And then we would have our delay. Let's say this is a true nurture. We have a delay for a couple of days here. That might be a little fast, but that's okay. We send them another email. And then what would happen is in our settings, we want to set it so that we remove somebody when they no longer match the criteria. That way, once they're no longer on this list, we no longer send them these emails anymore. Okay. So that's how we're going to go. And you can also do that with active lists. So you can use that as well if it's not going to be used for advertising. But again, if you're going to use it for the ads tool, you're going to want that static list. Okay. So that's how we're going to use our smart content for different lists and change the nurture based on the list membership.